Good morning. Today we're going to go over our first read comprehension questions for Red Kayak. So if you have not gone ahead and listened to the story that's assigned on Pearson, realize you need to stop. Go ahead, X out of this, go to Pearson Realize, click on the student's story that has been posted to your account, and listen to the whole thing. Now, you can read the whole thing to yourself. That's fine. That's perfect. But if you would like to listen to the whole thing instead, you can by clicking at the bottom of the story page. There's a little purple hippo. If you click on that hippo, it'll give you the option to listen to the story being read to you. So either way, before you begin with the rest of this video and the questions after, you need to have read or listened to the story before. So decide which one it is and either stop or go ahead and keep listening. All right. You don't have to have the page pulled up because Ms. Hudson has shared the paragraph with you that relates to each comprehension question, okay? I need you to read through or think through this with me and see if you can't come up with the answer on your own, because these comprehension questions are very similar to test questions you're going to see on Wednesday. Wink, wink, wink. So make sure you are paying attention and listening. It's going to pay off in the end. This comes from page 28 in your story. It says, already my eyes were scanning the shoreline for a red kayak or a splash of yellow. Mr. D'Angelo had told the police he couldn't remember what clothes his wife or son wore that morning, but he knew they had on yellow life jackets. Lots of color words in there, aren't there? It says, what can you infer about Brady's relationship with the D'Angelo family? So what can we infer about Brady's relationship with the D'Angelo family? Brady is the narrator, the main character of the story, right? It says, already my eyes were scanning the shoreline for the red kayak or a splash of yellow. Mr. D'Angelo had told the police he couldn't remember what clothes his wife or son wore that morning, but he knew they had on yellow life jackets. Well, those color words come in handy because right now we can infer that Brady knows Mr. and Mrs. D'Angelo and their son, and we can infer that Brady knows they're wearing yellow life jackets, and Brady knows what color their kayak is. And for those that don't know, a kayak is a boat, usually a one or two person boat that looks kind of like this one. So Brady must know the D'Angelo family to know what color their kayak is. This selection comes from page 29. It says, not too far downstream, a small creek emptied from the left. As my father's boat disappeared around the bend up ahead, I reluctantly turned my boat up the creek, slowed down some, and kept searching. The bow of the boat settled down, and the wake from behind sloshed up against the transom. Still nothing. Why would there be? Common sense and knowing the currents would tell you that the kayak had drifted downstream, especially with the fast-running spring tides. Unless Miss D'Angelo had intentionally paddled up one of the creeks, there was no way they could have drifted up here. So our first question, it says, what does fast-running spring tides mean? Let's go back and look at the context clues. It says, knowing the currents would tell you the red kayak had drifted downstream, especially with the fast-running spring tides. So, what do you think fast-running spring tides are? If you're thinking, and you use the word currents as your clue, that fast-running spring tides are fast-moving water that the kayak is traveling on, you would be right. Good for you. What does this tell us about Brady's thinking about where the kayak is located now? Does Brady think he's going to find the kayak? No, that last sentence, unless Mrs. D'Angelo had intentionally paddled up one of the creeks, there was no way they could have drifted here. I don't think he's going to find it. Or he doesn't think he's going to find it, does he? Page 30. Mrs. D'Angelo, I hollered at the top of my lungs. Ben, can you hear me? Nothing. Mrs. D'Angelo, not a sound. I fired up the engine again and kept going. Up the creek, a couple of private docks extended out into the water, and then there was this long strip of riprap near the construction site. From that point on it was just shoreline with trees and lots of brown cell bush. Still no sign of a red kayak or a yellow life jacket. See what he's looking for? All I wanted to do was open the throttle and head downriver to where the others were searching. My hands ached. They were so cold. I stuffed one hand in my pocket and hit the cell phone. I pulled it out and saw that I had one missed call. Turning off the motor so I could hear, I speed dialed home to see if Mom knew anything. Let's take a look at our questions. It says, Brady is yelling for Mrs. D'Angelo and Ben. Do they answer him? Nope, no answer. So does he find them? On this paragraph, don't think ahead. On this paragraph, does he find them? No, it says very clearly, our context clues, still no sign of a red kayak or a yellow life jacket. No, didn't find him. What does Brady notice when he pulls out his cell phone? What does he see? That's right. He had one missed call on there. He had a missed call. What step are we on in that plot event chart we went over yesterday? We know the characters. We know the setting. He's in his boat, right? On the river, up in the creeks. And we know the problem. If you said we're on the exposition or in the rising action, then you are correct. I think we're more on the exposition right now. So far, things are starting to get slightly worse and worse and worse, aren't they? But we know those things about the character, the setting, and the conflict. So we're good. We're towards the bottom of that chart. So are we exposition or rising action? What do you think? I think I agree with you. I think we're definitely in between the two, but if I had to pick, I would say rising action because the suspense is building as he's not finding them. Page 33, this paragraph says, move, I ordered Tilly. Right away, she jumped back into the narrow space in the bow. I flipped the engine into neutral and reached over to pull in Ben. He was a lot heavier than I would have thought, probably because he was so waterlogged. The water was cold too. I grabbed a hold of the collar on his life jacket and summoned all my strength to unhook him from that piece of wood. Things have changed fast, haven't they? The word bow is a homograph, and it can be pronounced bow and be a knot with loops tied in ribbon, like, girls wearing their hair. Or it can be pronounced bow and mean to bend one's head or body. A bow, right? Or it's the front of a boat. Which meaning makes the most sense from our story? I hope you picked the second one. The bow and not the bow. I would hate to be on a river in a bow. Page 34. The first thing I did was get his wet life jacket off, that and his soaked parka. Then I took off my own coat and wrapped it around him. I put my baseball cap on his head. I rubbed his hands. I patted his cheeks, but he looked terrible lying there on the damp wooden floor of my boat, his face pale as a sheet, his eyes half shut, and his lips as blue as a fresh bruise. Ooh, a lot of description there, isn't it? What is Brady feeling at this point in the story, and what clues let you know this? Brady is feeling what? Oh, I think Brady is feeling anxious, especially with all that description. Brady is feeling anxious because Ben looks so bad. He's not talking. He's not moving. He's pale. His lips are blue. I think that would make me nervous. Where are we on the character and plot diagram? Are we at the rising action part or at the climax part? I think I'm going to have to say rising action part because things are still bad and getting worse now that Ben has been found. But Ben has been found in a very bad condition. So the problem isn't solved, is it? And it hasn't started to get better. That would definitely tell me rising action. I was scared to death because I didn't know what to do. I pulled the cell phone out of my pocket, but my hand was shaking so bad, the phone slipped right out of my grasp and hit the edge of the boat and disappeared into the water. "Oh no!" I exclaimed. Why did Brady drop his cell phone? That's right. There's our context clue. I was scared to death. My hands were shaking so bad. He dropped it because he was scared and shaking. So why were his hands shaking? His hands were shaking because he realized things had gotten so much worse and Ben wasn't breathing. How does this add to the building excitement of the story? Oh my goodness, when you take a bad situation and you make it even worse. As an author, you are increasing the excitement, the suspense of the story. So now we've gone from a simple rescue where everybody's okay to an emergency rescue with medical help needed. I tilted Ben's head back a little and pinched his nose again, and I started by giving him one breath. Then I sat up, put the heel of my right hand on his chest, covered it with my left, and pressed down. 5 times I pressed down. 5 compressions. Then I bent over for another breath. Then 5 compressions. Then another breath. Then 5 compressions. 1 breath. 5 compressions. 1 breath. What phrase is repeated over and over again in this paragraph? If you said 5 compressions or 5 compressions in 1 breath, you would be correct. So how does hearing this phrase repeated over and over again make you feel as a reader? To me, it feels like I'm right there with Brady as he's giving Ben CPR. CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, is when you use your hands to do compressions on the heart. That's the pulmonary part. And you are breathing into their mouth so you can keep them alive long enough to get medical care. Resuscitation is a fancy way to say bringing back to life. 5 compressions, 1 breath. We were almost at the landing. I heard someone yell my name, and Tilly started barking. Then more people were hollering, and there was a bank of flashing lights, at least 2 police cars and an ambulance. It was all a welcome blur. I continued with 5 compressions, 1 breath. Suddenly, Jimmy Landers, one of Carl's co-workers, was hollering real loud, "Keep it up, Brady! Keep it up! That's it! Pull the boat in! We've got it! Don't stop, Brady!" What happened in paragraph 1 in 1 sentence? I want you to summarize. Brady is giving CPR and reaches the boat landing where the firefighters are. Perfect. I think that's a great summary sentence in 1. So why did Tilly start barking? Why is her, we were almost at the landing. I heard someone yell my name and Tilly started barking. Tilly must have seen those other firefighters and rescuers, and that's why she was barking. Why did the men on the dock start yelling at Brady in the boat? Well, they were yelling at him to what? "Keep it up, Brady. Keep it up. That's it. Pull the boat in. We've got it. Don't stop, Brady." They're encouraging him, right? They're giving him instructions because he is driving the boat and doing CPR at the same time, which is impressive. Brady's a heck of a kid. So they're giving him encouragement and telling him what to do so they can help. Page 40. Everyone else had left the landing by then. It was over. I began to feel a little relieved. Tilly and I headed upriver just as it started to rain hard again. But Carl's voice, "We've got a pulse," echoed in my ears. And I smiled. What does Brady mean when he says he can hear Carl's voice echo in his ears? I think it means he can remember because Carl's already gone. He's gone to the hospital with Ben. Carl has already left with Ben, so can Brady really hear him? I'm afraid not. It's all in Brady's head. Brady smiles as he remembers hearing what Carl said. What do you think that means for Ben? Do you think Ben's going to be okay? I do. I think he's going to be just fine. What stage of the character and plot diagram are we at as readers? The falling action or the resolution? Is the problem solved? Well, we don't know. They don't tell us what happens to Ben at the end of the story. So falling action, I think, is everything that happens after the climax. So I think we're definitely in the falling action part. All right, good job, guys. You've completed our first read questions. Please be ready for tomorrow's second read questions by listening or reading to the story again. But I already did it, Miss Hudson. You got to do it again. You got to go back into Pearson Realize and listen again for tomorrow. Why? Because there are always more information you can get from the story the second and third time you read it. The first time you were caught up in something, maybe. You were caught up in the excitement. The second time around, you'll get more information, more details from the story. All right? And let's face it, I'd read it again just to hear about Brady because he is such a cool dude. I mean, oh my goodness. I don't think I could walk down the hall and rub my belly and walk at the same time. And he's on a boat and giving CPR and listening to instructions and saving the day. I'd have Brady in my class like that. All right. See you tomorrow, guys. Have fun.